Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlawn Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlawn Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Surprise, surprise. Alan Miller, your host, and a return guest of many, many visits, Honorable Paul Anderson, recently retired from the Minnesota Supreme Court, and we've asked the judge to give us a little judicial perspective on this election, this surprising election that was just concluded.
Well, first of all, I got to let you know, precedent is important to judges, appellate judges. And I'm breaking precedent today is that I'm wearing a sport coat instead of a suit. I think this is the first time ever.
Welcome to the real world.
Well, I guess so.
Last couple of shows I didn't have a tie on, for which I was roundly admonished by
Well, I mean, you notice it's my Jerry Garcia.
Yes.
Brother.
Yes.
You know, not too bad for somebody who had to retire at 70.
Yeah. Which is one of the shames of the judicial system in this state.
It's all right.
It should be the same as New York has or other states have, where you can be renewed at least up until age 76. I would go 80. Simply because I am.
You are 80, that's true.
Yes, so that's...
And see, I'm 71 and I've got other things to do with my life, so why not force me to do them? So, this election.
Yes.
Many dismaying trends emerging from this election. Some of them continuing, more enhanced, that I think we should be worried as a society. One, the influence of big money. I mean, it just gets more and more expensive. And
thank you, Citizens United.
Yes. I mean, well, I think you would say that it's probably one of the biggest winners in this election. I'll give you two winners, okay?
The Koch brothers.
The Koch brothers and John Roberts. I mean, quite frankly, is that I don't think a Chief Justice or a small number of justices should have the power to so alter the fabric of our elective society. And by the way, my feeling on that goes the same way. I have criticized Harry Blackmun for deciding Roe versus Wade too broadly. Well, I agree with the bottom line premise that the Texas law was invalid, should have been invalid. He decided it too broadly. I think that Roberts, Alito, and the others are making decisions that are changing the fabric of our society.
Certain things bother me, and I was on AM 950 the other day, and I said the real winner in this election was John Roberts, our Chief Justice, for number one, stopping the Florida recount in 2000, when clearly the New York Times has now shown that Gore was ahead by about 60,000 votes, and giving
I'm not
us
sure it was Roberts who stopped it.
H.W. Bush. Well, if it wasn't, I'll blame him anyway.
It's his four colleagues that stopped it.
And number two for Citizens United,
that is
which has really turned politics on its head and really left the oligarchs to decide who's going to run this country, for the decision earlier this year that there was no more racial discrimination permeating the country, that we didn't need the Justice Department involved. And clearly this election proved, if nothing else, that we are very, very still racially divided and prejudiced in many states.
I want to say it's much more than a racial divide. First of all, it's a financial divide. And what Citizens United has further enhanced the impact of big money, the idea that a corporation is a person. Now, in some aspects under the law, you can view how a corporation operates as a person. But to translate it into a person and free speech and money, it's almost like this court values more the personhood of a corporation than the personhood of a individual who doesn't have a lot of money. But I'm not going to get into that.
I think some of their decisions in human rights, civil rights, indicate that also.
But I want to go more broadly, is that the current election indicates an increasing polarization, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I was reading recently the most recent issue of the AAUW, Association of American University Women, and showing how some of the court decisions and some of the legislative decisions, the legislatures that came into power in 2010 election, whatever, are so almost, well, they are anti-woman in some ways, and the language they used was so strong that it really bothered me. So there's a male-female divide. There's another divide that bothers me, is that the lower middle class, upper lower class wage earner white male, they are becoming have become a very disenchanted aspect of society, and are falling prey to what I would view as a pessimistic, negative message.
They're earning less than they earned 10 years ago, and yet they're voting against their own self-interest.
Yeah, they're voting against their own interests.
And I can't understand that.
Well, please, I will tell you.
Good.
No, there is a concerted message going out. I think I know, somewhat understand. When I was young, it's not that long ago actually, in the 50s and the 60s, there was this tone of optimism. Even during the Vietnam War, there's an optimistic tone and you could do something. And there was this, we as America can get things done and we can send people to the moon and all of that. Lately, what has really bothered me, and there are people that are promoting this message, maybe it's the Koch brothers, but it's a negative, pessimistic message. It seems like, I told you, I was in Benghazi and met with Ambassador Stevens.
Yes.
A real tragedy, okay? An excellent public servant. I mean, and events conspired, whatever. But the pounding negativism and finding somebody at fault was just, well, it comes up in, we got this crisis out of Africa, Ebola. So what do we get on the news? But Dayton is at fault for it. Obama's at fault for it.
We have had one case of Ebola that started in this country. But look at the message.
Look at the message.
Oh,
we're not. And I want to. And I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but it's the same people who want to cut the funding for the Center for Disease Control, or want to disenable World Health Organization, are saying, why haven't they done something?
We've been a year and a half without a Surgeon General because the names that Obama put forward have been rejected by the Congress. A year and a half without a Surgeon General, and then they are complaining that nobody is doing anything in terms of protecting our health.
That's what bothers me. I mean, we've got to, listen, I have lectured in any number of countries abroad, okay? And I am so proud of the United States. We have accomplished so much. So why do we have people wanting to send this negative message that things are wrong? Because it works. And you get people angry and disenchanted, then and then they get an anti-government attitude. I've told you before, I'm a little bit edgy on this, whatever, but it's almost unpatriotic. Thomas Jefferson said, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That's borrowing from the Aristotelian view of government has a role to enhance happiness. Now, it doesn't mean government can guarantee happiness, but it can provide the maximum opportunity for the maximum number of people to achieve happiness. And you have people out there just slamming government time and time again.
And slamming individuals
Yeah.
who have honorably worked to improve things in this country. I don't understand, for
Well, I'm
instance...
going to loop back on that. I mean, as I said, I met and spent time with Ambassador Stevens, an honorable, hardworking man, doing our duty and our job in Libya. But the way he was attacked and said that he was careless and whatever, the message it sends to other people in our State Department: don't take risks, don't advance the United States role, or don't take chances, because if it goes wrong, or badly wrong as it did in Libya, you are going to be criticized, and your image is going to... That's wrong. That is very, very wrong. In my mind, almost unpatriotic. And so if we can do anything out of this message, says let's change the image. I'm going to tell you another story.
Why can't we want everybody to do a little better? Why is there a mindset among some of these oligarchs that they have to have more and more and more? The
Well, I'll
Koch
tell you
brothers
that
can
is that-
spend $1 billion being negative in this election, and it doesn't help the country one
look at me,
bit.
okay?
They don't need...
I am a 71-year-old male white guy, Protestant Presbyterian, son of a middle-class farming family with a stable mother and father. I am becoming less and less of a factor in the election process because our country is changing, and it's that the character of our changing. And so why do they want to do that? Because it's about power. It's about hanging
strictly
on
about
to power.
power.
And it's, so if you discourage... I'm going to give you another example. Immigration reform. A lot of criticism. Say, President Obama, why don't you get immigration reform? The reason immigration reform is not going forward, Karl Rove and others have been on the record saying this, is that they don't want meaningful immigration reform, because whatever reform comes will probably mean there's a fast track towards citizenship for 4 or 5 million people who've been here and raised their families here, whatever, at least over a period of time. Statistics show that those first-time voters who are immigrants vote either 65, 70% Democrat. So it's about holding on to power, demonizing, who's on the other side, so you can maintain your... it's a short-term game, mind you. They're going to lose in the long run because our country is changing. But, is it as long as you hold on to the power for that?
We've got to get people interested again. We've got to get people who want to be heard and give them a voice. We have to... the results of this election were woeful in terms of the percentage of people, even in this state, who went out to vote this time.
Well,
now,
I'll tell
if
you
you don't,
okay.
if you don't vote, you're just throwing away your vote, and you're feeding in to these.
But that's another insidious thing about the message that's being sent. Both by Democrats and Republicans, and I can fault them both. See, so many people who are, and I know some of these people are putting these ads together. They want to turn you into a cynic, not a skeptic. Skeptic's good, but a cynic, so that you become so cynical about anybody who seeks or holds public office. You're going to say, a pox on both houses, it doesn't matter, I'm staying home. Now, they win when you stay home, because then they can target the message to their fervent faithful and get the voter turnout from those who are likely to vote. They don't like me because I'm in the middle. I can vote either way, okay? I don't know where you are, but they don't like the voter who can.
I'm to the left of the left.
You are to the left of the left.
Yes.
Okay. Don't get into the end zone, but you can be in the
I'm
red zone.
hanging on the edge.
You're hanging on. But no, they want to turn people into cynics. And so if you pay close attention to so many of those ads, and the number of the ads and the negativity in them, they want to turn you off as a voter, and that's what's so wrong about it.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah, but they're disenfranchising you then. They're disenfranchising you by self-choice, by making you a cynic. But it's so, in my mind, unpatriotic in a way that I mean, I can't understand. You know, the economy's better, employment's up, is that the school funding is up, the budget is balanced, and I run into people and they are just saying how bad things are.
Well, the same thing is true in the country, and I certainly, I was actually pleased to see all the Democrats who ran away from Obama lost. The few Democrats who did not run away from Obama, who has accomplished a lot, and I'm certainly unhappy with a lot of his positions, but who has accomplished a lot. We have health care now. We forestalled the terrible crisis that could have taken this country into bankruptcy. He has tried, and he will do something on immigration.
I'm going to respond to that two ways. One, history is going to treat Obama much better than it is currently right now. But sometimes I explain he's too Hawaiian. You know, I mean, he is. I mean, he is, especially early on, too conciliatory.
Much too conciliatory.
And not willing to play enough hardball early on. And the other thing is that, and now granted, he's been denied being able to surround himself with strong support staff, or not support staff, cabinet members, whatever, because of the blockage of it. But, you know, he needs to get some stronger people around him. This is, I'll tell you a little.
And he has to get people around him who haven't been with him since the days in Chicago. Yes. He needs people with vision beyond the state of Illinois.
I've read an interesting article. I've never been a real big fan of Eric Holder in Attorney General's position. I thought he probably would leave after the second election, whatever. He has now left. There's two things that are difficult. One is whether they're going to be able to appoint somebody to replace him. But the article I read said, well, now maybe some of the felonious bankers will go to jail now that Eric Holder is gone. I mean, and they pointed the finger that Holder was, you know, too benign with respect to the financial impropriety. And is that, so maybe there's some fault for Obama in not being robust enough in how he approached some of the key issues. But I want to come back to the thing is that I am really, really worried about the effect of the constant negative message that, and trust me, it is not accidental. This message is being tailored and sent because it works, okay? And I find that despicable because I love this country so much and we are such a great country that I'm tired of these people tearing us down and turning our citizens into cynics as they have. And whether it's a side effect of this or it's the polarization that's happening, it's male, female, it's upper class wealth versus the rest of the people. It's the social issues. I mean, that's then.
Well, part of it is the drastic change, and I think the new media is part and part responsible for that. Mm-hmm. But I think back to, I was a Democratic leader in Nassau County, not of the county, of an assembly district, and we automatically lost. We lost every election. But I had good relations with the Republicans and the Republican leader, and we didn't have people being torn to shreds in campaigns. Campaigns were on issues, not on really destroying a person. And what's happened today is just the opposite. Campaigns are not on issues. Campaigns are how much damage you can do to a person's reputation.
I had this discussion
with
both Warren Spanish and Walter Mondale. In my younger days, I tell Walter Mondale, in my first half of my life, I was working hard to defeat him and his colleagues. The second half, I find myself supporting his policies, many of his policies.
Well, you were appointed by a Republican governor to the court.
Yeah. But here's when I'm talking to Warren Spanish, I said, you know, Warren, when you were running for Attorney General and Doug Head was running for governor in 1970. We very strongly and agreed on some issues. We found common ground in other issues, and we had discussions about the issues. It wasn't about raw power. I mean, you wanted to achieve office and the power that it brought with you to work for the common good, your vision of the common good. We had different visions of the common good, but we could discuss those visions, and power was not the main issue. Now, with the strong polarization and the division, it all becomes a question of who has power. And when power is the objective, as opposed to policy and issues, it's Katie bar the door as far as what you can do to your opponent.
And we're falling far behind and internationally as a result of it. I mean, I heard one of the Republicans who won on election day say, now we can really go forward with impeachment of Obama. I mean, that should be the furthest thing from anybody's mind. What they should try to do is work on the many problems that we still have in this country and talk about them and discuss them rather than...
Okay, now I'm going to be very skeptical about that talk.
Okay.
Let us go back to the last decade of the 20th century. The impeachment of Bill Clinton. I mean, it was beyond me what was going on there, but I understand it in retrospect. Is that if you bring the impeachment forward and you make that such an issue, is that it distracts the people, disillusions them. It was all about the 2000 election. It was all about, making your opponent look as bad as possible instead of focusing on what's best for the country. And if they proceed with an impeachment of Obama, they being the Republicans where it come from, they are committing an unpatriotic act in my mind. Criticize him as much as you want. Disagree with his policies.
But at least have a dialogue with him.
But see, if you can impeach
try to
him,
have a meeting of the minds.
If you impeach him, which is then bringing the criminal charge in the House of Representatives, you then have a trial in the Senate. They know that it's not going to go anyplace in the Senate. It's a 2/3 vote and whatever. Well, they'll just.
I even think that Mitch McConnell is smart enough to realize that it's not going to go anyplace.
He's smart enough to know. But then you understand that Ted Cruz is attacking a Mitch McConnell because he's not radical enough.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Ted Cruz is a loose cannon, which even the Republicans have walked away from in large measure.
But I mean, it's that he's got a following, and there's some of that, and it's just kind of I won't say craziness. I don't want to use that, but there's an absurdity to it.
People are not informed. People listen to this and they are not informed. People don't read newspapers anymore. People live on sound bites. They believe in 140 characters in a tweet and is more effective than really knowing. For instance, I can't start a day without reading the New York Times. Why?
Well, that
because
influences you right there.
It's
you must be left.
It's the best newspaper in the country. But I also, I read Al Jazeera. Yeah. I try to say nothing of the local papers.
Well, you should read some of that. I mean,
I
read on both sides of the. I'm conservative. I want to hear. But I'm going to go back to the story I wanted to tell you a little bit earlier. I'm walking out of the polls, and it's a bright, beautiful, sunny day, in November. I said, I'm walking with a couple that's in their mid to late 60s. And what a wonderful day. Haven't we had a marvelous fall? So many sunny days, and it's been one of the best falls I can remember. And we agreed and whatever. I said, the only thing about it is that it's this warm and this sunny this late in the year, I begin to wonder about global warming. And the woman snapped back to me really quick. Oh, there's nothing to global warming. That has been debunked completely. There's nothing there. And I said, well, I have a nephew who's studying the polar bears, and he's bringing back the research. He's with the University of Wyoming, and I said I'm reading survey. And just recently, I said the World Health Organization issued a report that shows it's worse than we think. And
just this week.
Yeah,
right.
And her reaction is, "Oh, you cannot believe anything that comes from the United Nations." Is that they are a completely discredited organization. Well, they've got plus and minuses. But, you know, my wife and I are hosting two Norwegian 17-year-olds.
I know who that lady voted for.
Yeah, but in any case, is that it was interesting observing the election with them. And one of them made a very smart statement, informed statement that day. You know, give every American citizen a passport and send them to Europe for a month. Let them see what it's like with, you know, healthcare. It's
Education.
And said,
where they're not saddled with $30,000 or $40,000 of debt
Yeah.
when they get out of college because they go to college free.
or you're not having to have a fundraiser for a 6-year-old child who gets leukemia. I mean, think about that. Now, I mean, I'm a little edgy today. I hope I don't come across anyway in partisan, but I am worried as much as I ever been about the trends I've seen in this country, and that's why I'm a bit, you know, outspoken on something. It really does worry me.
I think people have to hear that type of, if you call it outspokenness, it's really moderated, it's really intelligent, it's really concerned, it's really patriotic. It's the feeling that you have, it's a feeling that I have, it's a feeling that so many of us have, but that feeling seems to be getting away from us, escaping us, and I just worry about what's going to happen to this country if this trend continues.
Well, we're getting close to the end, right?
We've got 1 minute and 45 seconds.
I'm going to repeat, and I forget the name of the person it is, that the optimism of uncertainty. You know, as you drive a car on a country road at night, you know, and your headlights can see about a speed of 50 miles ahead of you, but you're going 65. You know, there's an unknown area out there. And I want to leave on this optimistic note. There is uncertainty in our future, and it's scary. But the fact it is uncertain, it means that you and I and everybody else, if we do something, we can control the future.
Well, let's hope so.
And so what your message is, and I heard it earlier, is that we got to get more informed. We can't choose our own facts.
And more involved.
Oh yeah, involved. You got to get out and vote. And see, you don't get to choose your facts. You can come to different conclusions on the same facts. But you've got to stop this cherry picking of facts to support what you want to believe. But if you go out and you diligently sort out the facts from many different sources, and then come informed and involved, there's optimism in that.
Well, I hope that there's optimism. It's been very depressing to watch our downward spiral. We've been talking with Paul Anderson.
And my wife, by the way, says things will get better. So
well, let's
that's
hope
the
so.
optimism.
Let's hope so. And always a pleasure. Come back anytime and often because it's an education just to listen to you.
Very good. Always a pleasure, sir.